Also, you need to pick up a copy of the Star today and also see what is on the front page of the Star this morning. Health staff upset by Grand CA's office. We're talking about sheer wastage here. And it says that this is all about being a lavish Sicily karaoke clears out senior staff to take over 7th floor of Afi House. Minister wades from one controversy to another as MPs oppose suspension of KNH chief executive and the advertisement of KEMSA's top job. Now, this is the 7th floor as depicted here or shown with the related picture on the front page of the Star. It is a reconstruction of Afi House 7th floor, which is underway, and Sicily Karaoke is set to occupy half the floor, her office complete with dining and changing room. So when we talk about, and yesterday also we saw on the front page also of the dailies that 4 billion shillings also cannot be accounted for. This is a report from the Auditor General as well. We're talking about sheer wastage in the country that is happening right now, where on the other hand, we are proffering our hand to look for aid from other countries, a pale in hand always. Are we really remaining none the wiser? We've seen from Lois Ongoi's story as well that one part of the country has maize glut. The other part of the country, people are dying of hunger. What is really happening in this country, right? It is very critical that we look also few years back where we had milk glut, and you saw farmers actually just wading through milk with their gumboots because we didn't have any coolants to store our milk. Yet right now, as we're given to understand, Kenya is one of the countries that produces, the milk production is way, way high, yet we pay even higher for that packet of milk every morning. Why is that? Why can that not be converted, to a low price? If we have enough milk production in the country, where there is milk glut, people can actually also benefit from that. We have our panelists this morning. Of course, we want to weigh in on the raft of other issues as well today. It is Wednesday where we focus and we talk about issues security. Food security is key and pivotal in this country. Allow me to introduce to you, I did that at the top of the hour this morning, Professor Nyumba Kumi, who is the Vice Chancellor of KCA University, also an expert on defense and foreign policy. We do have with us Ambassador Erastus Moncha, who is the former Deputy Chair of African Union. Also, we do have with us Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is an expert on conflict resolution and national security. We do have with us Irungu Houghton, who is the Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya. And also we do have with us Dr. Wirunga Simiyu, who is the CEO of African Center for Security and Strategic Studies. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Looking at that story, looking at what we have on the front page of the Star, maize glut at one part of the country, hunger, of course, seeing people dying of hunger on the other side of the country, harking back to history as well, or maybe just 5 years or 10 years back, where farmers were actually wading through milk because we didn't have a coolant in this country. There is a big, big problem in this country. We saw also the Auditor General has come up with a report. 4 billion shillings cannot be accounted for, yet we are out there also having, that roadshow to try and raise the Eurobond. This is the second Eurobond we're trying to reach for as well. So are we none the wiser as a country as far as maybe managing our resources is concerned? Let's begin with you, Professor Nyumba Kumi.
While I watched the president talk tough the other day to the people who have just been appointed, and at the end he said everyone is going to carry their cross. In this government, in this time, there cannot be business as usual.
Yes.
What has happened in Southeast Asia, including China, Jinping is taken on corruption head on. That's the same thing that happened to South Korea. That's the same thing that happened to Singapore.
Yes.
These folks that have just been appointed need to be disciplined, and they need to be on diet, and they need to understand the direction and the status where Kenya is right now, that we are very serious about eliminating corruption and putting this country on the road to real recovery and prosperity. There is serious disconnection between research production, storage, and distribution in the country. And so the point, what I'm trying to say here, is universities, almost every university has the big data research right now, which tell us the variation of weather, whether there is going to be rain, whether there's going to be problem, whether there's going to be everything. We know, and we tend to be every single year reacting instead of proacting. When rain comes, there is a lot of water which is wasted, it's gone. How can you explain a small state like Israel with no rain at all, feeding all these people?
Thank you.
And also exporting
Thank
food.
you. Let's hear from Balozi. Good morning, Balozi.
Good morning, Deepa. I think it's sad for the country that year in, year out, we see total lack of capacity to manage the agricultural sector. And yet we know that food security is actually not just the food security, but it's also a national security. And globally, agriculture is one of those sectors that are very much guarded by all governments in terms of production and also imports to make sure that you have enough food to feed the population. And so, just in addition to what the professor has just said here, one of the major challenges of agriculture globally, and Africa in particular,
yes,
is the loss, post-harvest losses. It's about 30%. And why does that happen? It is because of poor infrastructure, poor storage facilities, poor support to farmers so that what is produced is secured.
Yes.
And you can see a case in that. Somebody lining up for 3 weeks, it is raining, so that grain will be affected, and so we lose, and the farmer will lose, the country will lose, and then we import. Yet, in the same story, we have in one country where people are going hungry. You can see people really have nothing to eat at the end of the day. So it calls for a very serious conversation, among all the stakeholders, particularly government level, as an enabler, the producers, and even the consumers, and also even those that are involved from the middle to the consumers, because farmers lose a lot. They produce, they're paid, and so when they got the next crop, they don't even know what price they expect. So there is a very serious issue here. And as he said, it calls for serious attention, and really people must sit up and look at this issue as a very serious challenge to the country.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Mustafa.
Dibal, incidentally, President Uhuru Kenyatta espoused 4 pillars that is going to be, that he thinks is going to secure his legacy in his second term. Of the 4 pillars, 2 are really what we are discussing here this morning. One is food security, food for all, and the other is health for all. Now, when you see that kind of goings on in North Rift, that farmers are not able to deliver their produce to the silos, and NCPB officials are saying that the silos are full, one has to ask what happened. My suspicion is that no silos have been built over the years. And this is bad for the country. It means that the policy that are there, and there are policies in the country, are not being implemented, are not being followed. That the population is increasing. Obviously, the increasing population is going to require more food, and we should build more storage facilities, and that production will increase. Now, we can only describe this as a professional indolence and insolence from those who are responsible in the Ministry of Agriculture. If I was the president, I would be calling Mwangi Kiunjuri to State House today at 10 and ask him what is happening. And call the previous minister, I don't know who was the previous minister for agriculture, what happened in the last 5 years. When you see people starting to have or occupying half floors on Afia House, and you start wondering, is a big office going to prevent your skull from being opened at Kenyatta National Hospital? I mean, we have to be serious. If we are going to assure health for all, These ministers and cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries should be touring the counties. I was very impressed when I was in December last year. I went to a few dispensaries in North Rift, one in Baringo, to seek for treatment. And the hospitals are working there. I was actually treated. I had a dislocation. I got a very good consultant from a county hospital. Now, some of the counties are moving forward. Others are really lagging behind. At the national level, we still lack that driver. And the cabinet secretaries, the principal secretaries are supposed to be drivers of efficiency. Their offices are supposed to be centers of excellence. We don't see that yet. And this country is not going to go anywhere if those people that are supposed to be helping the president to make sure that the 4 pillars are actually implemented and achieved do so.
Right, let's hear from Houghton.
Good morning, and good morning, Kenyans. Debals, I think I only have 2 points on this one because I think the other panelists have adequately addressed this. I think first of all, I think we have to acknowledge the farmers who continue to produce and perhaps in this context overproduce for the system. The system is not able to cope with the amount of production that they are able to do that. So I think that's the first sign that there is something working. The issue I think that's been raised by Erastus Mwencha about post-harvest loss is a critical one, I think. The figure of 30% loss is something like about 1.3, what's the figure? 1.3 tons globally that's lost, and Kenya contributes about 5 million tons to that global figure. So we do need to address the issue of post-harvest loss, not just as Kenya, but I think we put it in a global context, it's important. The second point I think really relates to whether we have become numb as a country to food security policy. My sense is that I remember back in, I think it was 1997, and I just joined the NGO sector and was horrified by this story somewhere, I think in Ukambani, where there was a child that had eaten a dog. And it was a front page story back then. And we were all very shocked by this food security issue. But it seems to be now that we have got used and perhaps numbed by the fact that we're not able to have a clear food security strategy for all Kenyans. And I think that perhaps is where we need to look, and perhaps where the cabinet needs to look at in terms of how do they keep all Kenyans, first of all, how do they keep the cost of food prices down? And secondly, how do we ensure there's adequate food for all?
For all. Yeah, let's hear from Dr. Werunga.
Yes, I think I want to relate this to...
Let's just continue, please.
Yeah, I want to relate this to national security. A hungry population is a very dangerous population. A poor population is a very dangerous population. So first, look at the chain. You have people who are not earning from their sweat, and you expect them to be good citizens of this country. You have farmers who are very hungry and who are angry with the system, and you expect them to be law-abiding. But I want to look at this in the context of 2 levels. I want to remove the president from this thing now, because the president has created the Office of Chief of Staff. That is the delivery unit for the president, and it has been there for 5 years. So it's not even the minister. We expect to, what is the name of this man?